Ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and we'll have the doors shut. If you could take your seats, we're going to start here in 2 minutes. All right, this time we're going to call our natural resource meeting to order. So we welcome everyone to our committee meeting. If you would at this time, I'd like to ask Chris Fugit, if he would, Representative Fugit, if he'd open us in prayer, if he does not mind.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you for the day and the blessings you give us to be able to serve you, to serve our people back home and all across Kentucky. And I pray, Lord, as we look at important issues with energy and different things that affect our people directly, I pray, Lord, we'd make good decisions that would benefit them the most. We thank you for loving us. Thank you for taking care of us and help us to be faithful to you. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Then if you'll stand, we're going to do our Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Senator Boswell, Senator Carpenter, Senator Elkins,
Present.
Senator Girdler, here. Senator Herron,
Here.
Senator Maiden,
Here.
Senator Mills,
Here.
Senator Webb, Senator West, Senator Wheeler,
Here.
Senator Williams,
Here.
Representative Baker,
Here.
Representative Bauman, Representative Blanton,
Here.
Representative Bowling,
Here.
Representative Bridges, Representative Chester Burton,
Here.
Representative Dossett, Representative Flannery, Representative Fugate,
Here.
Representative Hancock, Representative Johnson, Representative McCool,
Here.
Representative Miles, Representative Moore,
Here.
Representative Smith, Representative Watkins, Representative Wesley, Representative Whitaker, Representative White, Representative Williams, Co-Chair Smith,
Present.
and Co-Chair Gooch.
Here.
We have a duly sworn quorum. At this time, I need a motion for the minutes. I have a second. All those in favor with the sign of aye, please. Opposed? Motion carries favorable. As always, if we have any members that wish to be recognized, please let me know at this time. I know we have Representative Fugit has an announcement he'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, we've been working on the trail system across East Kentucky for the last few years. Next Tuesday, October 21st, I sent an email out, but we'd like to have as many legislators to come to East Kentucky, to Letcher County, Fish Pond Lake. We're opening up a new part of the trail system, about a 25-mile trail ride. It'll be about an hour and a half long. And if you can come be part of that next Tuesday, the 21st, we'll start riding at 11. And then I need a number so that we can arrange for food, because that's always important. And also, you don't have to bring an ATV or side-by-side. We'll have them there for us all to ride in. And so please come and be part of that.
Representative Fugit, if it's okay with you, we'll ask the staff to send all the members a memo on that so they all have that information to share. Senator Mills, we'll yield to you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I was looking around I'm here. I can't see around the columns, but earlier our new EPIC executive director was walking around. His name is Eric King, tall guy, and we're excited about the work that the EPIC Commission is going to be moving forward. Just wanted to welcome him here. He may be out in the hall, but just wanted to say welcome to him and let everybody know that we're finally moving forward with some stuff on EPIC.
Very good. Thank you. Representative Flannery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do see one constituent here today, and
and some other folks that are not in my district but are very close to my district in the audience today. And I'd like to take the time to recognize them and thank them for attending this meeting and coming to the Capitol. Thank you.
Very good. Welcome. Senator Maiden has a quick introduction, I believe.
Executive Director with the Kentucky Coal Association, Sam McCowan. Want to welcome him. He's been here with us for a little while, but we're glad to have him on board.
Sam, welcome to our committee. And then finally, I see nobody else. Actually, Representative Wesley has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce my constituent with me today, Andrew Simpson. If you guys make him feel welcome, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to welcome them. And then I'm going to yield to Co-Chair Gooch.
Okay, I'm not sure, but I think that we had a group of employees from East Kentucky that came down today. Either it was East Kentucky Power or AEP. I'm not sure. Is anyone in the audience? Okay, thank you. Welcome.
I'd like to welcome them to our committee as well. Members, if I missed anyone, I'll take a quick look at it. Seeing none, let's go ahead and get straight to our orders of the day if we could. We're going to be talking about nanotechnology, so I was looking for Dr. Andrews to have him go ahead and come to the table. And Rodney, are you going to have anybody else with you, or are you going to do all the presentation yourself, which you're certainly adequate for it, but as always, go ahead and introduce yourself to the table, to us, and we'll yield to you.
I'm Rodney Andrews. I am the director of the University of Kentucky Center for Applied Energy Research. I will begin by prefacing that this is a very dangerous topic to ask me about because this is the area of my own research, and I could talk quite a bit longer than the time we have here. In general, talking a little bit about nanotechnologies and what role they play and will play in energy. To the right there is a model of water running molecules running one after another through the core of a carbon nanotube. That is something that we developed where that happens frictionlessly, which means there's a great deal of energy savings if you can apply those in membranes and other separations. So begin with a little bit of background. What is special about nano and that scale? It means that we're working at a scale of 1 to 100 nanometers. That is 1 billionth of a meter. Or if you can look there off to the right, you can see, this is much smaller. It's 1,000 times smaller than a virus. It's 5,000 times smaller than a red blood cell. These are very, very tiny scales. And why do we care about that is because material behaves differently on this scale. We can turn things from what we normally think of as three-dimensional into behaving like two-dimensional or one-dimensional materials. This gives us a huge surface area to volume ratio, which changes the behavior in reactions and other interactions. And it's where what normally you would have a separation between a bulk property and the property of the material, they start blending together. And so we can take advantage of this. We can more directly manipulate matter at this scale. So we can control a structure even down to the level of atoms and how they line up, and we can change its function. We can have it be fast. We can have reactions occur faster. We can have things be more selective. And so it really opens up the possibilities to control what's going on in ways that we couldn't in the past. This is my really lame way of emphasizing how small we were talking about. The Earth is about 7 million times larger than I am. But I am 18 million times larger than a carbon nanotube. So that tells you just how small of a scale we're talking about. This is just an example of how we manipulate these materials. If you look at graphene, that is a lattice of carbon atoms. They like to form little hexagons, and then they like to connect all together. So that's a sheet that is one atom thick and maybe different sizes. If we stack those up, that is how we get graphite, the one you're familiar with from pencils, from lubricants, all those sorts of things. If we take and roll it up we get into a different type of material, a nanotube or a fullerene. And then we can also do the version where we have them stacked inside each other. And so this, we're able to then control all these things. And just to show, again, the level we're at, the micrograph on the left, you can see the lines, the straight lines. Those are individual rows of atoms where we've used the microscope to cut through the nanotube and are looking down at it. And so that entire thing is about 14 nanometers in diameter. Nanotechnologies are used in existing applications, and some of them are ones that you will be quite familiar with. Modern televisions, OLED televisions, they are using quantum dots. Those are a one-dimensional nanomaterial. Phone screens and glasses, the coatings that are on them to repel oils or to be scratch resistant are a nanomaterial. Sunscreen, different medical devices, particular testing. Catalytic converters have always used nanomaterials, particles of palladium. Then you get into construction, aerogel insulation for windows. We have that on one of our laboratories at the center, where we've used those materials to give greatly enhanced energy efficiency compared to plain glass windows. Anti-reflective coatings, anti-corrosion coatings, those are all very important when we start looking at energy applications. And then if we think, where are these really used? Again, sunscreen is probably the one you've used the most. Computer chips now are all designed down at nanometer scales, catalytic converters, and then tires. Carbon black that's used to bind in tires is made at this scale as well and has for decades. So in terms of energy and where nanotechnology plays in, it really cuts across all the different sectors we would think of. Energy generation, energy storage, transmission, and conversion. And I'll hit on some of these as I go through. But again, the idea here is just looking at how do we take advantage of our ability to control these sorts of materials to make things more efficient, more effective. And so in energy storage, there's a lot of carbon materials that are used here. There are a lot of other structures like this, where what we're looking at is increasing the porosity or the surface area within a battery or electrode, looking at making those materials more conductive, looking at increasing their reliability. And really, it's as we've gotten down to this scale, we actually can start approaching what's the actual limit of the amount of energy we can store in a material. And that's something we can't do when we're looking at larger bulk properties. And so here you can see some of the advantages: faster charging speeds, higher energy storage capacity, because again, we're controlling that structure down much lower scale and able to pack the area we need to store the energy. Gives you a longer lifespan and durability. These materials are more robust compared to if you have something that's larger as you're cycling, charging, and discharging a battery or a capacitor. They give you better power delivery. When you're thinking about electric vehicles or other large applications like that, you want to be able to deliver power very quickly. That's how you accelerate. And these materials, because again, they're very we can make them very highly conductive, and we have short distances for them to act over, we can get very high power output. And one of the other ones is we see better performance at various temperature ranges. They can work very high temperatures or very low temperatures. They don't have some of the other ones. And so as an example here, I'm just showing the Tesla 4680 battery. That is the standard battery that they put into the electric vehicles. What you can see at the top are individual cells that you might think of as like a AAA battery. And then those get packed into the array that's shown there below, and that's how you put together the big battery banks that go into the car. One of the first batteries that ever used a nanomaterial was actually Sony in the late 1990s. You could get Sony batteries were the first to include carbon nanowires in them, and that was why they actually lasted longer than their competitors' batteries.
Dr. Andrews, let me ask you just
Sure.
a question here. This is, I remember one of your presentations you did, it may have been before you were a doctor many years ago, but the nanotubes are found in coal, correctly? Can't you
They can be made from coal,
Right.
yes.
So I think that's one of the reasons with this committee here is that I think we took off at 30,000 feet, but some of the members may be curious about why we want to bring it. That's one of the things that the state has to offer is that we do have the ability, we have a rich abundance in the opportunities for this. And I remember the presentation probably 15 years ago, but I wanted our members to understand that that this is something that gives coal a tremendous sort of leg up, if you will, with the opportunities with nanotechnology. So just want to kind of bring it down so everyone understood the thrust of it, because there is so many applications, and from the electrical, even paints, I've seen it in the as far as what it does for UVH and all that's remarkable, but want to just kind of land it a little bit and let everybody know sort of it has a tremendous impact for Kentucky because of that. So I'll turn it back over to you.
It's a very good point. Kentucky's manufacturing base is a real opportunity with these sorts of materials. We do and have made carbon nanotubes from doing coal liquefaction to get the hydrocarbons, then use that, and they're advantageous because of the structure. Talking about solar energy, this is one where, again, there are advantages with using nanomaterials. You get their higher energy conversion efficiency. They give you, and where this can really become directly relevant is they give better performance in low light conditions. So if you're thinking about Kentucky, where we're not Arizona, we don't have extremely intense light all the time. We get clouds, we have weather. And so they can improve low light conditions. They can improve the range of light that the panel can absorb. You can see down there at the right, we've been able to develop these now that are flexible. And in the case of these panels, these are actually printed on like an inkjet printer. So laserjet inkjet printer can make these, so they're very inexpensive to make. They reducing the manufacturing costs, and they can also just improve existing panels. Some of the things that are used pretty commonly right now are coatings to be anti-reflective, meaning that you're going to absorb more energy, so you're going to improve the efficiency. It's about 4%. And you can make them self-cleaning. This is some work that's being done at UK. This is John Anthony in the Department of Chemistry and at CAR. And this is a good example of what we're trying to do using these materials. In this case, they're using a nanographene. It's just a little segment of those carbon atoms that I showed you before. This has been done where we've recovered some of these materials from coal liquids. But here what we're looking at is existing silicon solar panels actually need the energy and the light to be at a fairly low level in order for them to be able to absorb it and convert it into electricity. And so what happens is high energy light that comes in ends up being, some of it can be used, but a lot of it is rejected as heat. That causes two problems. One, it warms up the panel itself, which means it loses efficiency. The other problem is it creates a heat island over the entire field array, and that has a lot of different negatives. And so what Dr. Anthony's group's been able to do is take these materials and make a coating out of them. And what happens then is when the light comes in, that high energy light basically gets grabbed by that graphene. And then the energy is ended up being shared across molecules, which is then effectively splitting it up into multiple lower energy things. And so this offers the opportunity not just to handle the heat, but it can increase the efficiency of existing solar panels by as much as 40%. This is currently at about TRL level 4, meaning we're just trying to get into the manufacturing phase of this. But I think this is a very promising technology that can be directly applied across energy production. Another area, this is with Ken Graham from the Department of Chemistry. He's looking at perovskites. This is a naturally occurring mineral We don't want to use the naturally occurring form. It's sort of the wrong characteristics, but we're using that basic structure and modifying it. In this case, we're modifying it with tin. The reason we want to do that is these can be much cheaper and can be much more efficient. The problem we have with it is, as they currently exist, they're not stable enough. They're only stable for hours. And so the work that's being done in that lab is looking at how do we insert other metals, controlling the way the actual crystal of this material stacks up. And that allows us, as you can see there, to make quite a bit more longer stability, getting up into hundreds of hours instead of hours with how long it is useful. This is more traditional. This is where nanotechnology has been used for a long time in refining, fuel processing, and chemicals. Here, these play roles in catalysts, in coatings, and also in making sensors. Again, this is something that we use in different fuel processing technologies. This allows us to tailor catalysts for different applications. It allows us to build supports that control the way reactions take place. Allows us to do separations, gas sensors, and a big one is in coatings for corrosion resistance and for frictional losses. And obviously that's just an illustration there at the right. The one on the top, though, is just to show palladium is used quite frequently as a catalyst, and it makes a structure like that. With the ability we have now to manipulate these materials, we can actually go in and replace the corners of these crystals with, in this case, a gold atom. That changes the way that chemicals will go onto that particle, and therefore increases the rate that reactions take place. In that case, it's for a hydrogenation reaction. And so these materials really do allow us to do new reactions, to do better, more selective reactions. This is some of my work. Here, I'm just showing a nanotube. These are the two ends of it. We did chemistry on one end to add sulfur groups. We didn't do it on the other end. And then we react it with gold particles. These are about 10 nanometer gold particles. They bond to the end that we put sulfur on. They do not bond to the other end. This was sort of a proof of concept that we could do this, but one of the interesting things about this is the size of this nanotube is such that it will poke through the wall of a cell. Well, once it does that, you can hit it with microwave energy, and it will push all of those particles that are attached to the end out into the cell. And so that's got a promising application towards doing directed medical treatments where you're very, very targeted towards certain cells. This is more standard chemical processing. These again are nanotubes where we've put different catalysts on there. In one case, it's copper. In the other, it's palladium. Here, the palladium one is we were making a different type of catalytic converter. We were making one that could operate at a higher temperature, so we were using this as the catalyst support. The other interesting thing about that is palladium is really good. It's what's called a spillover catalyst for hydrogen. It means that if you put these materials and you start putting them in hydrogen gas, they will start capturing and laying hydrogen down on the surface of those tubes. And it's one option for how you might be able to store hydrogen much more densely than you do just as a pressurized gas. This is some work that looking at making renewable diesel or sustainable aviation fuel. These are direct drop-in replacements for existing hydrocarbon systems. And here we're looking at developing catalysts where we're controlling very carefully the ratio and the structure of a nickel copper catalyst. And what I'm showing here is the conversion of brown grease. That's sort of the bottom of the barrel when you have waste greases from restaurants, from food, from other processing. All of it gets landfilled right now. We're able, by developing these catalysts, we can, one, get 100% conversion. We can get nearly 100% selectivity to diesel range. and we have a very, very long on-stream time. And what the upper picture there shows is that we're producing this all in the diesel range. And then the lower one is just showing that we're also able to use similar systems to this, where we can make jet fuel, the equivalent of a sustainable jet fuel as well. This is an interesting new area that we've just gotten into recently, which is looking at making yarns. There we take the carbon nanotubes, we put them into a solution. It's very similar to how we make carbon fibers from coal liquids. We draw that out and they all align as a liquid crystal. And so you can see here on the right, the very nice long straight lines. That's when we pull that fiber. Those are all nanotubes that are all lined up going in one direction, just like you would think for regular yarn. They're very supple. We can twist them. We can put twist in them. They can be woven. We can even tie knots in them and then untie the knots. So they're very strong and key to energy applications. These are also very, very conductive, extremely high conductivity.
Dr. Andrews, don't they also have a principle as far as electronic pulse? Wasn't there an issue with some of the material made out of that? They had the example where they put it around the cell phone and you could not hear the cell phone ringing at all.
Yep.
And so we, at that particular time, we had the IUDs going off and for our soldiers, and there was a ability, it looked like, to make these cloths that you could put over top of it so they couldn't be activated from a distance. And it's a very, very thin cloth made from this material, which is an incredible property to see it work. You could not hear those phones at all as soon as you put that fabric over top of it.
Yeah, these can be they can be woven into different types of weaves, and I'll show a little bit about that. One of the interesting things about these is they outperform copper. And they outperform it both in strength and in stiffness, and they're nearly as conductive as copper metal. And so where we're looking at them are in different applications like power transmission. There you may put them as a core and coat them with copper so that they could be used as wires that are more flexible, that are lighter, that have a higher conductivity. Some of the other applications with them, we're actually now able to change the electronic characteristics of these materials as they go down a single fiber. The advantage of that is they can be woven, and one of the applications we've done there is make them two different types of semiconductor, and they become a thermoelectric device. That means that they produce electricity directly from a difference in temperature. And so you can think of these as putting them as wraps around piping, where you have steam piping and other things, and you can harvest energy off of them. You can also think about putting these into clothing, and you can harvest your own energy as your body produces heat. They also allow us to make interesting batteries. This is very early on, but we're able to make these in structures where we build layers up on top of them, and then they become essentially a fiber-like battery that can then be woven into cloth used for different applications where you need to carry energy like that. Where we're really interested about these is for power transmission. If conventional overhead power lines are limited because as you increase current, you also increase the temperature in those lines, which causes them to sag. With these materials, because they are stiffer, because they have the same or better conductivity, what happens is that they don't have the impact from heating, and they're stiffer, so you can make power lines that don't sag as you push more current through them. And this is just a comparison here of where you see a steel core in the properties there versus, in this case, a carbon fiber core, and see that you can carry more power and it's much lighter. Where that really comes in is when we then start looking at that for a carbon yarn. Not only compared to a carbon fiber, not only are they stronger and stiffer, but they actually can have a higher thermal conductivity and much higher electrical conduction. So they're almost ideal for using in this application. It's something we're developing now. And another interesting part about it is their thermal expansion. So how much longer do they get as you heat them up? Carbon fiber is often used because it has a very low thermal expansion. These have much, much lower than that. And so they're ideal for applications where you're operating at high temperatures and need conductivity. This again is another one of looking at these as wovens. Again, these are flexible organic thermoelectric. So again, being able to produce heat from a temperature differential. Here, there in the middle, you can see these are yarns. They're just woven materials, but are woven in a way that allows us to then, as you put it against something that's at a higher temperature compared to the environment, it will produce electricity. And what we're comparing them to is the current state of the art, which is a very rigid ceramic system that is both expensive and very fragile. And so that's where these start becoming very, very appealing. And some of the work, again, this is from Ken Graham's group, is that they're now pushing these and have been able to increase their power factor by 3 times. Directly into fusion energy is another application that's developing. In this case, this is work by John Bulk in material science and engineering. He's part of a large team that's looking at how do we shield fusion materials in a practical fusion reactor. And here they're looking at using a nanoporous tungsten. And the idea would be they would take that, and then because of that controlled porosity at the scale that it's at, they can then fill it either with types of ceramic, or in the case that they're looking at, actually using a nanocrystalline diamond. So you have a tungsten structure that's then filled with diamond. The reason you want this is that if you're looking at using this and making fusion energy practical, you're operating in temperatures of 150 million degrees. It's about 10 times hotter than the sun. And so controlling that and keeping it from melting the reactor is obviously a huge challenge. And so we're looking at how do we take advantage of our ability to control matter at this scale in order to make shielding materials. Other energy applications, I didn't want to make this an endless lecture. Nanofluids for cooling. This is one where you can take very, very particular particles at the nanoscale. You can put them in a fluid. It doesn't change the behavior of the fluid because of the size they are, but you can greatly increase both the heat capacity of that fluid, its ability to take heat out of a system, as well as the ability for it to then release that heat. We've developed materials that are used in drilling muds. One of those being nano-sized diamond. It allows you to drill more rapidly at lower temperatures. Joule heating of materials. That means basically making a coating. These are the kinds of materials that Senator Smith was talking about where they're nanotube coatings, putting them on the leading edge of a turbine blade. If you put a little bit of electricity in that, it will begin to heat up. And so you can use it to slough ice off the leading edge of the turbine blades. We've done work with looking at these as lubricants. That application was actually work we did with NASA where they needed to develop a lubricant that could be used in space that would be stable. Electrostatic additives for low energy paint curing. This is again one that we've worked on where we're putting additives, nanotubes or other ones that are carbons at the nanoscale. They will couple radiatively with energy sources, a microwave, other radio frequency, and they will heat. And so in the case of paints and coatings, you add these as a base layer, you put them on, and then effectively you can microwave your car and have the paint set in seconds as opposed to the length of time it takes trying to do that with traditional hot air cooling. Electromagnetic shielding was the phone example. We can make paper out of these materials. We can make cloth out of these materials. When you put, they will shield electromagnetic energy. So the example is cell phone. It will stop receiving signal. We also look at this for looking at putting it place in rooms where you do not want to be able to have electromagnetic energy come in or out. So for security purposes. And then also work we've done with the Army using these materials for thermal transport composites. And this is where looking at things that are going for aerospace applications where we need to be able to get heat from the inside of something to the outside of it very quickly. And there, in this case, what we've done is we've taken carbon fiber. We've then grown silicon nanowires off of that, and then we've grown carbon nanotubes off of that. So this is a three-dimensional tree-type structure. We take this and add it into a traditional woven carbon fiber cloth, like you would see in bicycles, tennis rackets, airplanes. The 787 is a carbon one. And this allows us to take and pull the heat out of the electronics package in what we were working on here and keep it, basically protect that from thermal damage. And then I just wanted to wrap up the presentation part with, we're now working at the next scale down from nano. Quantum is working, when we talk about quantum technologies, we're now talking about working below the size of an atom. And so this is some work that John Anthony does with some collaborators at National Renewable Energy Lab. They're actually looking at developing quantum computing. An application that we think would be very relevant with this is when we're trying to look at doing massive computation for things like energy forecasting and other, looking at scaling as well as reducing energy demand. The way
how does
that
this handle EMP? Is there any studies to see how this would handle electronic magnetic pulse
for quantum or in general?
for your quantum when you're at that level right there? Is there a protocol for the effects of that?
I don't know.
Because it seems like it would be impervious to it if you think about the structure of it, which could be a not to coin the word, but quantum leap for what they're doing right now, because that's one of the biggest threats to us. But in this field where you're at, I think the principle's there that it wouldn't affect it.
These materials that, at least the ones here, would absorb the energy.
They'd absorb the energy, spread it out.
Yeah, and so there are some options there. Also, the previous slide where I'm talking about shielding, also those materials can be used for shielding EMPs. So with these, the big challenge is that when we talk about quantum computers, and there's been some news things out about this lately, Microsoft has developed one, they have to operate at extremely low temperatures. Minus 450 degrees is kind of where they're at right now, which makes it impractical. It's very expensive to keep materials that cold. You can't build large systems. And so it's just an enormous amount of energy to do something we do otherwise. But what we're looking at is then using different materials that we've been developing. And again, this gets back to using the graphene, where we have very controlled structures at one-dimensional, small. They can harvest energy as things pass through and go into what's called an entangled state, meaning they're sharing energy across two molecules. And what was observed here that's really a big deal is that they're doing this at room temperature. They're not at minus 450 degrees. And so if we can continue to improve this, these could be used for developing quantum computing capabilities that would operate at room temperature. The challenge here is that we have to get them to last longer, get that entangled state to last longer. But just kind of an example of how that worked is that, and why these are very different than when you think about, a computer now, is this would actually be charged using light. You would put light in, it would go into the excited state, and then you can actually, using microwave energy, effectively tell it what you want it to do. And when it's done, it outputs light. And so you can then read that output of light to determine what the calculation was. And so it offers the ability to do these things much faster and much more intensively. And where we're at with this technology right now is it lasts about 700 nanoseconds. Unfortunately, that's almost enough time to do a computation. And so the goal now the Department of Energy has set is basically to double that length of time. And so that's what we're working on now, is to get these states to be stable for that length of time. If we get that, that will enable quantum computing, which will be the quantum leap in what we're able to do computationally.
If you do, I've got several questions if you got a minute. I've got
Sure.
Representative Bobby McCool. We're going to yield to Representative McCool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Way over here, sir. Thank you. Just a quick question, if you don't mind. Are there any environmental or safety concerns when mining or deposit for a long-term impact with utilizing any of this?
There are, and there have been a lot of studies on health impacts and environmental impacts from nanomaterials. There are concerns if they are not handled correctly. They can be respirable. That's one concern in human health. The other is accumulation in the environment. You know, you hear microplastics and things like that. And so a lot of work goes into looking at how do they behave in the environment, but more into ensuring that they don't get released into the environment.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, can I make one more statement, please? Also, you mentioned about rare earth material, and we get a lot of that from foreign countries, although we have an abundance of it. I just have a concern that we're becoming dependent upon foreign countries, and we got to come and utilize our own rare earth materials as well.
I agree.
Thank you. We have Representative Bland next.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Andrew, for your presentation. I've just got one very quick question, easy question, actually. You're talking about on the nanotechnologies, the electromagnetic shielding. Would that be something we would think about as a Faraday bag or
Yes.
something that neighbor?
Yes. The advantage of these materials for that is, currently the state of the art is copper, a copper mesh. And in this case, these can be flexible, they can be painted, things like that, but it is exactly a Faraday cage.
One follow-up to that, Mr. Chairman. So my understanding is when these signals come in, it disperses the energy.
Yeah, it absorbs and then
So
disperses.
would say a Faraday bag, if it comes in, does it have a shelf life that it's eventually going to wire out, so to speak, and have to be replaced?
Not if it is designed correctly.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You have to have a way for it to disperse the energy.
Thank you.
Very good question. Next, we have Co-Chairman Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Andrews, it's great to see you, and I certainly enjoyed your presentation. I can assure you I followed through every page as if I was ready for the next one, but I have to confess that it was a little bit over my ability to comprehend. So I have a question that's different from this, and but it's something that I've been talking about for 10 years, and it was mentioned earlier by Representative McCool, and that is the rare earth elements, rare earth minerals, and that sort of thing. And I've talked for years about how we're dependent on other countries for this. I think China now controls about 85% of that, and we were starting to see that in the negotiations that we're having with them, they very well can and are even talking about playing hardball with some of those materials that are so essential to us. And we, as it was said, we do have it here. There was a project that UK did in my county, Webster, at the Dotiki mines. There was a Alliance coal facility that shut down, and they were actually had people come in, students and others, and they were trying to mine that from the gob piles of the refuse that was left over after they had washed the coal. And that project lasted for maybe a year or whatever, but then it maybe wasn't feasible or whatever. Are you familiar with that project?
Yes, the round 2 of that project is actually operating at the center right now.
Oh, it's operating there
Yes.
now. Well, I'm glad to know that because I didn't. And,
That-
I know sometimes it's very costly to extract that, and but at some point when the world supply is maybe used against us, and it might be that the cost is not necessarily the greatest equivalent of whether or not we should continue with that research, and I hope that we do, because I think it's going to be very essential for us that we do. So one other thing I'd like to say, Mr. Chairman, is this committee has come out to the Center for Applied Energy Research on several different occasions in the past. It's been several years, I think, and I know I was always, I just was in awe of the technology that you were developing there and the things that you were doing. And I would like for us maybe in the future to bring, because we have a lot of new committee members, and I'd like to be able to bring them out and view your facility and let everyone understand the great work that you're doing there. So again, sorry to get off track a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Representative D.A. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fascinating. Appreciate the briefing. My question is, out of all the different technologies and different applications you talked about, how many of them as far as cost effectiveness goes, how many of these are actually applicable in the real world now versus experimental or still in the design phase?
Most of what I presented on catalysis is either commercial or commercializable. Those are certainly economically competitive. Some of the work that we're doing, like the solar panel, where we're looking at improving that, that is about halfway to where it would need to be commercial, but that appears to be economically competitive from the initial work that's been done in that analysis. Some of these other ones are at the stage that we don't even look how much they cost yet. Because there's just not enough of it to, we haven't gone through the process of, well, how would you make this on a large scale, which is the challenge. Some of the other ones like coatings and things like that, those are commercial as well now and are used pretty widespread.
Well, it's just obvious that you got to do what you're doing now before it becomes commercially viable, but it's always good to see it coming and see where the bang for the buck is coming from. So again, thank you for the briefing. It's fascinating. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have Senator Jay Williams next. Senator Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So I'm over here. So we're next to the column. Yes. Okay. On the I'm looking at transmission power conductivity. And at one point you said it's better than our current metals, and another point it said it's almost as good, but the little tube. So is this something we might be able to use? And then I look down, and we're talking here at the end on what looks to me almost like superconducting material on that if we get it there. So is this a possible replacement of the graphene for metal in transmission or for superconducting materials for all sorts of other applications?
Yeah, those are two separate types of material. Okay. The yarn type materials, the carbon nanomaterials are, we're at the state. I've got an example if anybody wants to see it after the meeting. They're at the state that we're making them in meters, and they need to be made in kilometers before it becomes something that we could seriously look at. But we're looking at that because the properties are there that these would be preferable over existing metal systems. If once we get to that point, but again, that's always the challenge of how do we get from something that, we're not making two of them, but we're still only making meters long of them. So there's that challenge in terms of scale up. That's always the big challenge in jumping from a new material into a product. The alternative would be if someone has a breakthrough in in superconducting materials. The challenge with those are that they still more or less have to operate at very, very low temperatures, which makes them impractical for doing as long distance wiring.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at room temperature.
Yeah,
Superconductors are
that's
the holy grail, right?
Yep, it's the same as the quantum computing stuff. If you can get it to room temperature, then it really changes things.
Okay, and but even at short distances, they may improve some of these the next generation of computing we have, which are very small. Can I ask a follow up?
Please do.
Slightly different area on the heat dissipation properties here. We see on reentry we have shields on our heat shields on reentry, and also on the hypersonic missiles. How do you cool off those things when they're flying 4 times the speed of sound? Would this, as a coating, be applicable to those applications?
So the standard material for ablation in aerospace is a carbon material. Mm-hmm. These materials could probably be used as backings to that to help reduce heat. We look in that area, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. And our last one is Representative Wade Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to ask a question today and your presentation. A lot of my fellow members, kind of connected on the critical minerals idea that I was thinking about in my question, but there's a relationship with coal and how we pull some of those critical minerals. I think we talked about China recently, and Representative Gooch did, that they're going to throttle that back. That covers everything in defense. We can go down the list of this covers it. But what am I hearing? If I'm hearing you correctly, the UK, are you got dedicated research that's looking at those relationships and how we could maybe pull some of those from here, or how does that work?
Yes, we've got several projects in that area. The one that Representative Gooch was talking about is Rick Honeckers from the Department of Mining Engineering, Jack Grappa, who's at the center in mining engineering, and they're looking specifically at middlings. So they're looking at where when coal is formed and it's essentially converting over, it appears that the rare earth elements get sort of pushed up to the middling zone between the rock and the coal. And so we're looking at if you could recover those from a prep plant, or if you go into an impoundment and pull them back out, they do have higher concentrations. And then that can be processed using hydrometallurgy, just metallurgy techniques to recover that. The challenge is that they're at much lower concentrations than some of the other seams around the world where people are producing a large amount of these materials, like from China or Russia. But it is true, we're getting some of the rare earth elements were well into the mid 90s of 90% of how much we get from China. They announced that they were going to start putting export controls on these materials. A year or so ago, they did that for graphite, which is a critical mineral. All of our energy storage materials all depend on that. And so right now we have a project from the Department of Energy where we're taking coal and liquefying it to get the carbon to then make graphite, very, very high purity graphite for energy storage and for other applications. And then in that process, we're pulling out all of the minerals. And so those are then going over to the rare earth element processing and extraction part. So what we're doing is pre-concentrating the rare earth element bearing minerals when we're pulling the carbon out to use for graphite, and then those are going over to then be processed into getting the rare earth oxides.
Okay.
I'll just to close with that, I think that you find rare earth metals and mine tailings, and you see these slurry ponds and stuff that we have, and I have a couple of samples that have come from western and eastern Kentucky that have been extremely impressive, if not some of the most impressive I've seen in the U.S. And so I do think it's very promising to see what we've got there, and that is a byproduct of mining and often found in the mining areas. So we do have some real potential there for it. And we saw the one out west close down during the Obama administration, which really just hand-strapped us to having to buy from China. So hopefully I don't think that's going to happen now. But with that said, we will go ahead and wrap up. We certainly appreciate you coming. I knew this technology was something that I wanted a lot of our members to realize. This is a win for Kentucky. You've been leading the way on this. A lot of members, maybe the first time they've heard about it. So thank you for going into depth, and I'm sure you'll be available for any members that have comments or want to come see what you've got. If I see nothing else in front of our committee, I hold for a motion to adjourn. Second.